are listening to Joygasm, video game and movie podcast. I am Russ, Xbox Live Toaster 360. He is Steve, Xbox Live Stevavitch. And we are no longer popsicles in Texas. In episode 213 today, February 18th, 2021. We're going to be actually celebrating, rejoicing even in the fact that we have survived this week before going right into our topic of the day, which is the Coco movie review, which you can fast forward to if you look at the timestamps located in your podcast provider detailed section below. Steve, I was not exactly sure if I would be seeing you ever again.
Ever again, Russ? Are you about to die from hypothermia?
Let me tell you, Steve, when you have no power for, well, I should say very little power for a 2-day period, you begin to wonder if you could ever warm up again, especially when it's about 3 degrees outside.
With wind chill.
With with
wind chill makes it colder.
I was going to say, it does make it colder, but not as though I have any kind of huge desire to be outside when it's 3 degrees outside.
It can be fun, Russ.
Or really?
Tobogganing.
You like having frozen snot icicles develop on the tip of your nose there, Steve?
You bring tissues.
You bring tissues.
You bring tissues. You blow your nose accordingly. You do what's got to be done, and you have fun doing it.
Something tells me you did nothing of that this past week.
Yeah, I went for a few. No, tobogganing? No, I don't have one, Russ. No, but there were people who were. I will tell you. Mm-hmm. There were people with their quads, their ATVs.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Hauling people around.
I saw a couple myself, Steve.
On sleds. There was one guy who hitched his, small fishing boat, or I don't even know what it was, like a skiff or something, but he hooked it up to his the hitch of his Jeep and proceeded to have someone drive him around town like that, waving at people. Kind
of like Back to the Future almost, with Martin McFly hitching a ride on the back of a pickup truck, only he was on a skateboard, waving at the ladies working out at the gym there, Steve?
Possibly. Although in that scene, the truck driver did not know he was hanging on.
Very true. There is there is a little bit of a difference there, Steve.
Martin McFly was stealing a ride.
That's true.
But So it was cold. But we took a bunch of walks. We attempted to build a snowman. We're not successful. I mean, we only got 4 inches of snow. It wasn't all that much.
Yeah, I think depending on where the snow gathered, it was between 4 and 6 inches. Because around my house, there are parts where I would walk into it. It's like, oh, that's a little deeper than over here. But of course, the way my property is, it kind of has areas that kind of, I don't know, slope into a valley.
Right. I was thinking of the word valley, Russ.
Yeah. That's because we're connected, Steve.
Right. But, we made a few snow angels.
Yeah, I did see the video that you sent over, which was really fun, of your wife doing it in the backyard or front yard.
We took a walk to the park, Russ.
Walked to the park.
That was a park snow angel.
A whizzle to the pizzle.
Something like that.
Very nice. Very nice.
And we did a couple more in front of the property. Just kind of laid there, flinging our arms and legs in the snow.
You know, I'm jealous, Steve.
Why is that, Ross?
Because that was my idea for us, Steve. I wanted us to do snow angels together because I don't think we have ever done snow angels together, Steve, and gotten a picture. Yeah. I wanted to get a picture for Joygasm, the two of the hombres doing snow angels.
Well,
it just didn't work out.
The road. You see, what happens is you have to scrape the roads. You have to get all the snow before it turns to ice off the roads, or else it's too slick to really drive. Because if there was no problem driving without crashing in anything, you could have come over, or I could have come over. As it stands, with the ice and driving up a hill and turning down and to the left, I wasn't about to see what happens.
It is true. I live on the only real hill in the state of Texas. It's flat everywhere else.
Like way flat. Like really flat.
Like pancakes look at Texas and go, man, you're flat.
Even we have some ridges.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so they would know. So we tried to make it an adventure because, I mean, what else are you going to do? You can't go anywhere.
It's true.
You don't have any power. The power's shut off. So it's like, where are we going to get our warmth from?
Indeed.
And so we just tripled up the layers and luckily they didn't turn off the gas. So we were still able to have a fire, still able to cook.
Yeah.
And then what do you do during the day? When you can't play games, you don't have any power.
It is a return to the 1800s, Steve. That's what it is.
It is.
You know, it's interesting. We had, of course, no power just like you. And it was supposed to be rolling blackouts. That was the original plan. It was like they were supposed to be able to, I think, have no power for like 30 to 45 minutes, and then the power comes back on. Yeah, that didn't happen. Not at all. Not even close. We ended up getting like 1 hour of power in between every like 15 hours.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, shouldn't this have been scheduled? Because when you think of rolling, you think of a ball, right?
Well, I think of equal, like, you know, sharing
exactly.
of the load, right?
So like, well, okay, yeah, for sure. So let's say you have a circle. You're on one side of the diameter.
Can it be a beach ball?
I'm on the other side,
Can
right?
it have multiple colors on it?
So when it turns, you get power, and then I don't have power, and then you get power, and then I don't, and then I get power, and you don't get power.
It's not
But
complicated at all.
It's not really. I would think it's. I mean, maybe there's Homer Simpson in the power plant going, like dancing and singing a song. That's what I saw.
I do not work in the energy sector. I have no idea how the control panel works, but in my head, I think of a very simple control panel consisting of switches, right? So each switch represents a part of the grid, and you go click on, click off, and you just kind of do that on a timer-based system. So that way we roughly, within, I don't know, a couple of minutes of each other, have the same amount of on time and off time. That just didn't happen at all. Instead, we became a frozen wasteland.
Okay, Jesse Ventura.
Looking for any kind of survival.
You sound just like Jesse Ventura.
Wearing several jackets and gloves and scarves as we scrounge for food. Oh, by the way, I'm the only one asking these questions. Yeah. My final days on the planet Earth, and I'm wrapped up like an Eskimo. No, it was pretty intense. And I was going to say something else, and doing that voice totally just kind of boop, like ruined whatever kind of forethought I had. But yeah, it was, man, it was one for the books for sure in terms of how cold it got, because you know, for one thing, we have gas fireplaces. We don't have wood burning fireplaces. We have gas fireplaces. Which tend to be, you know, in its own way convenient, right? It's nice to be able to, like, hey, you know, use a little lighter, you light it up. The lumber or whatever kind of decorative elements you put in there never get charred and burned out. I mean, it's quick and easy, and it looks great. Well, one of the issues that I have in my house at mi casa, Steve, as you well know, is that my fireplace has not been fully decorated yet. It is merely a functioning empty rectangle. The fire does work, but there's nothing in there. And so it really doesn't emit or radiate very much heat at all, despite how large the flames get. And I remember talking to you about that because you actually have a fireplace that is fully furnished, so to speak. And so as a result, you and your wife were able to huddle around the fire.
Even so, it still was like 48 degrees inside. I mean, it wasn't like we were like 2 peas in a warm pod.
That's true. But you got to take it where you can get it, Steve. You got to take it where you can get it. The only place that we really had that was on our kitchen stove. And so we ended up lighting all of the burners on the top of the stove just to get some semblance of heat. Because, I mean, it was getting into like the 30s in our house. Like, I mean, it was like when it's 3 degrees outside, your house temperature is going to continue to drop. And when that happens, you start getting a little desperate for some heat action. And that was working out okay until all of a sudden we started feeling headaches. And then we realized, we should probably open a door or a window perhaps, because I do believe this is the first sign of carbon monoxide poisoning. And apparently we were not alone in that, because there have been, unfortunately, a number of folks in the state of Texas that had to call 911 and be taken to the ER as a result of too much inhalation of said carbon monoxide poisoning. Man. So, and then if that wasn't enough, then comes the water issue where the water pipes started to freeze. Did you have any of your pipes freeze, Steve?
We had, yes. Well, yes, we had one. No, I mean, basically 2. We had in the regular kitchen sink, we had cold water working, hard water, like not hard water, hot water not come out. Actually, I don't think we had any hot water until later on. So the cold water was working, hot water was not. And then for sure.
Why am I so confused?
And then because it all comes out of one pipe.
You see, there's a pipe and there's water that comes out of it. The only thing is it could be hot or it could be cold.
And so, and then out of the fridge, you put a glass in there. Well, even when we had power, the water was supposed to come out.
Oh, gosh.
Now it never came out either.
That was one of the big realizations that I had too, was that I had forgotten how much, I mean, anytime I get a glass of water, it's through my fridge. Well, when the power's out, the water dispenser doesn't work. And so then we were thinking, how about some tap water then? It's okay. We live in a first world country, tap water. Yeah. And literally as soon as we started entertaining that idea, then we started hearing about how Fort Worth issued a boiling water alert because the water supply plant that does all the filtering for the tap water, that froze too. And so there were sections of Texas where suddenly the tap water was unsafe to drink. You had to boil it before you drank it. And it wasn't limited to Fort Worth. I also heard that Tyler, Texas became under the same type of alert. Well, we found out that Tyler. It's really difficult to go from a Texas accent to an Australian accent.
Until you say Tyler.
Exactly.
Tyler.
So anyway, it was an adventure for sure. And I'm just glad that today was like the first time where we rose above freezing temperatures. We got to be about 34 degrees, 35 degrees.
38 degrees, Russ.
It was 38.
38.
Ooh, very nice. So a significant percentage of the snow has melted, and there is a limited amount of travel that has resumed on the streets. And tomorrow it's supposed to be even warmer. I believe it's supposed to be in the high 30s, maybe even into the 40s.
40s, Russ.
40s, exactly. In which case, we will be able to put a closing of the chapter of this particular part of life, which I am looking forward to, because let me tell you, it is so weird. I gotta ask you, do you have any kind of like minor PTSD from the 2 days of like no power?
No.
Like, did you ever like when the power came back on? Well, actually, I actually know the answer to this because we talked about it on the phone. We were talking about how we kept, like, when the power came on and actually decided to stay on, we were talking about how we were waiting for the knife to fall. We were just like, at any time, we're like, it's going to go off. It's going to go off. Okay, it's totally going to go off now. And it was just the funniest thing because leading up to that point, it's like when the power came on, I don't know about, I mean, you guys are a little more like laissez-faire about it. My household, it was like the power came on. I was doing laundry. I was doing dishes. I ran the dishwasher. I was vacuuming the floor. I did everything I possibly. I was filling up water glasses with the fridge, doing everything I could. And of course, nothing got finished because they only gave us an hour. I mean, logic would dictate you get at least a couple of hours, maybe even 4 hours. So like what would happen is like I would like feverishly like load the dishwasher and click start. Like, and then all of a sudden the power go. They're not done.
Dishes. Yeah. Now what?
Like you have like the
Do we open it?
the soap is like halfway melted in there and like the water's still there and you're just like, and then a little bit later like the power comes back on and you realize, oh yeah, it's resuming. Is it okay to eat off those plates? I don't know. Same thing can be said before the washer where like you're washing clothes and it's like doing its thing and all of a sudden like the power goes out and you're just like, they're not clean yet.
I can't wear wet clothes.
It's just am I going to get itchy from the detergent that's not quite dissolved? I don't know.
Well, we had already purchased like 3 cases of, well, not 3 at the time, but we go through some bottles of water. And so we had collected some cases of bottled water that we had upstairs. So we're like, okay, we're good with drinking water. And then we had already washed our clothes. And so we didn't have to wash any more clothes. And then since we kept the faucets dripping, we had collected buckets
Yeah.
of water that we used just to like to either wash our hands or wash plates by hand. And so we didn't really have a lot of that emergency stuff. So when the power came back on, it was like, charge your phone.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, no. We only got like a minute left. How much power do you have? 89%. I have 75. Give me that charger.
Yeah.
You know? So,
I totally forgot about the whole phone thing. Yeah, that was one of the things too. Like as soon as the power come on, we're like, charge the phones quick. We need to have power. Even though like, and that was the other thing too, was that the cell phone towers also froze. So that meant that the performance of people texting and making calls to loved ones also went down the crapper. It was, like I said, it was a very memorable time. Very memorable indeed. My wife's tub cracked. There's like about a 3 to 5 inch crack. We heard this loud pop. And I looked over at my daughter. I was like, did you hear that? And she said, yeah. I was like, where'd that come from? She's like, I don't know.
she's holding a big sheet of poppy paper. I don't know.
Yeah. But then we ended up realizing, oh, the tub has cracked due to the very low temps. So that was a bit of a bummer. The wife was pissed. Pissed. Now,
Southern style.
if there's one thing the ladies like to do in the South, it's to have a nice long bath with a glass of sweet tea. Am I right, ladies? Let me hear it.
Let me hear it in a call man.
So, one of the things I'll tell you, one of the positive memories I had from the whole situation.
Positive, Russ.
So the shower was part of the pipes that were frozen in my house. So I was unable to bathe. And trust me, you want this oily man to be able to bathe on a daily basis. When he doesn't bathe in 2 days, that's a problem.
That's disgusting.
So I was in my bathroom with mini buckets filled with water that we had collected before the boiling water fiasco materialized. And I was sitting there just staring at the dribble coming out of the shower head. When lo and behold.
Oh, that's the rap version there.
Oh my. Anyway, I had a Luke Skywalker moment, Steve.
You use the Force.
I started to just bore
It's affected
down
your
my
mind.
stare. I don't know. I started to stare very intensely at that shower head, willing the ice inside that tube to melt. And by George, I watched in real time, live, as the water made its way through the shower head in full force. And I was so excited that I ran out and grabbed my wife and we looked at it and we cheered. It was amazing.
You see, that's what I prepared for as well. See, with all the water that we've been collecting, Russ, what we did, well, me, is because my wife showered when we had power and water running, hot water, my wife had boiled some water and that we mixed with some of the freezing cold water that had been coming out of the faucet. And so then I took a bucket into the big bucket and I was standing in the shower and I would take the bucket, I just dump it on me. And then take another bucket, just dump it on my pit.
Now, did you do this?
Dump it on my chest.
When the power was on or off?
Both. Ooh. Hey, you know, you're either gonna pay for the water as it's going down the drain.
Triple espresso coffee to wake you up? Or freezing freaking cold bath water in an unheated house?
So I thought, I'm paying for this water either way. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna bathe with it. And so I brought my shampoo and I had my soap, and then I was just dumping water all over myself with the buckets and lathering up and then bucketing more, and then that was it, Russ. That's how it's done.
You went for the culturally exotic way of bathing.
I did.
Good for you, Steve.
Thank you.
Good for you. I'm proud of you.
I hope I actually did save some money, because I've heard some people have like $10,000 power bills and water bills.
I heard about that too.
Yeah.
My goodness. My wife was talking to me about how she was looking, I think in the news or something, about how there are people who they're a part of some kind of like wholesale electric subscriber base or something like that. And so normally they get like their electric super cheap because it's all wholesale.
Blue Book.
But I guess the bad side is that if the proverbial feces were to hit the fan, that apparently it's completely dynamic in terms of the price, because the energy sector then, due to whatever kind of equation that involves greed and lack of resources.
And not liking certain people in the neighborhoods. I hate that guy. Turning his power off for 15 hours.
So, that guy, he's the host of Joygasm. Yeah. We'll screw him over.
But this guy's pretty cool. We'll leave his power on constantly.
So there was one that she talked about where there's someone who owed, normally I think they were talking about how like on average, like I think that the cost was like $60 or something for the month. $17,000. $17,000 for the month of February, which as of this recording is not over with yet. So yeah, I about fell over when I heard that, because I'm just like, there's no way that someone like an individual is gonna be able to pay for that.
You lost.
There's no way. It's just insane, and a lot of these people were kind of like, well, I mean, that's just how it is. I'm like, do you understand how difficult it is for the average person to like muster up just, I don't know, 17 grand from between the couch cushions? Like this. I don't know. I think that if they insist on having that get paid, I think that a class action lawsuit could be in the future.
All I did was run my heater.
Well, the funny thing too is like, especially if you're one of those people like me, who only got like an hour's worth of power before it was off for 15 hours. I'm like, wait, so how does the math work out on that? If you're charging me, basically of the, I should say most of the 17 grand is being charged from just this past week. Just the past week. That's where the price is skyrocketed, okay? How much is that on a per hour basis? What is that? What is that, like $3 grand an hour?
Supply and demand, Russ.
Feel a little indigestion coming on like that. So any other comments about what has transpired this past week? I feel like as though it is appropriate to be able to document this, because I don't think this is going to happen again for a while. I think the last time we had something on this scale anyway was around 1918.
Oh, that wasn't too long ago.
Which, ironically enough, I felt like I was back in 1918. Actually, it's more like 1800s.
Anybody have any dogs? I got a sled here. Anybody got any dogs? Hey, can I borrow your dogs? I gotta go to the grocery store.
I have to share this too. So because we had no power, we were trying to get information because we had no idea, like, hey, is there like some sort of approved plan in terms of like when the power comes on versus when it comes off? How long is this going to last? Like, what kind of emergency services are still in working order in case, I don't know, someone has to go to the hospital or something? So we had this old school transistor radio with the antenna, the old school, like, we're like, hey, welcome back to the 80s. Yeah, that's exactly, we had the dial on there and just like, partly cloudy. Hey, there's a Spanish channel on here too. And
man, is that coming in clear?
Yeah, it was like, man, that sounds good. There was this one channel that we got that it was like more of like an informational talk radio type of thing. And the gist of what was said was, Texas is really cold this week, and you probably want to get some more information. If you would like some more updates and information as to what's going on, you can find it on our website at www. Like that was what they said. I'm like, we have no power.
I'm running on AA's.
There's no way to access the Wi-Fi or the cable internet. My computer is dead. Which is why we're listening to your dumbass on the radio.
Was it WW or was it WW?
I don't remember like what exactly it sounded like. But my wife and I just looked at each other. We're like, "Are you for real? Are you kidding me?" Like they in the time it's like. It's one of those like I don't know, public sector government run website kind of things. It's just like they're super proud of like their website that was built in 1998. They're like, well, if you want some more info, you can go to www. You're like, everyone's on the radio, dude. Like you need to like say like whatever kind of like important, pertinent updates and info you have right now.
Just fly over a bomber and drop leaflets so people can get more information. Like, I'll get something out of this.
We're out there with like a bonfire, like doing like the Native American smoke signals. Over here.
No, it's not that way. It's this way. Longitudinal.
Like the pilots are like, I'm not exactly sure if I see a white dude or not because the snow is really masking it. I don't know.
There's no one living there.
No, that dude right there. Yeah, he's whiter than snow. Yeah, he's there.
That guy's whiter than the snow is. I thought that was just an expression.
How is that possible? That man needs to get out more and get a tan. Did you have any other observations about the week, Steve?
No, Russ, I think we beat that one to death.
We did indeed. It was good to be able to talk about that with you.
Get it off your chest. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, especially now that my chest is thawed.
Especially under these lights.
Well, see, that is one of the nice things about these particular lights. These studio lights and the halogen bulbs. Man, I tell you what, it turns a house that was struggling to be above 50 degrees. What are we up to? 78 now? Nice.
81.
Oh, we have broken into the 80s.
And I'm in sweats and a sweater.
Redefines the term sweats.
It's a sauna up here in the studio, but that's the way we do it.
Every day's a sauna day in the Perkins household. That's why I like it, Steve. What have you been watching? What have you been playing, Steve?
Well, Russ, before the power went out and we were desperate to do something, we watched a couple of Christopher Nolan flicks.
Went into Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, we watched Man of Steel.
That is a good movie.
Man o' Steel, Russ. And it was just as good, if not better, as I remember. It's absolutely fan-freaking-tastic.
That's a great movie.
It's a wonderful. We got to do a review of that one.
We do. Yes.
I loved it, Russ. I did. I think I watched the preview like 14 times after the movie was even over. It was that good. I even sent it to Mom.
Did she? She hasn't seen that movie, has she? Okay, I was like,
Mom, I know you're not into this, but you gotta watch it.
trust me. I mean, it's not Crystal Reeve. I mean, we all know Crystal Reeve is hot. Okay, it's like, Henry Cavill's got it going on.
Henry Calves. It's got some calves.
Among other things. Muscles coming out of everywhere.
Muscles coming out of his pores.
He like has sort of like microscopic telescope. You're like, yeah, each one of the pores are like.
Russ, if I had a physique, I'd want Henry Cavill's physique. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, that dude's like a walking like
bicep.
Mike. Well, I was gonna say he's like a walking Michelangelo sculpture. It's like, my goodness. It's like it's not. Oh, by the way, this is totally going off. We're making a left turn now.
What's over here?
I happen to be on YouTube because we got power back, and I visited my old friend YouTube, and I just happened to have one of the wonderful suggestions made to me. And that is the best of the WWF from 1988. And let me tell you, watching a montage that is holds a special place in my heart as a young boy. Watching muscle-bound grown men.
Ooh, a cup of coffee.
Watching Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior.
Randy Savage.
Randy Savage, Jake the Snake, Roberts, the $1 Million Man.
$1 Million Man.
You know, the only folks who I didn't see in that video were the Bushwhack Brothers. And I like me some Bushwhack Brothers.
I think you already are bushwhacked.
I probably am. But it was so fun. It was so nice. The interesting thing, though, the point of all this is the physique of the men back in the 80s, Steve. I mean, they were like beefcakes. Like, they were huge. First of all, they all had like this amazing tan. It was like
it's a fake and bake.
No, I don't think it was back then. I think they were all like partying it up in the tanning bed salon area, because it was like if you do like the fake and bake thing or like the spray on tan, it looks kind of orange, like Oompa Loompa, you know. Hulk Hogan, man, he had the nice brown tan, the bronze tan. But it wasn't just Hulk Hogan. It was like all of them. Like, you look and you're like, my goodness. That's not the point, though, Steve. That is not the point. The point is that as I was watching these sweaty, huge, brutish men go through the motions, it was amazing how like their hands, their arms, like everything, like they're just these Goliaths of men from the 80s. And when I think about the wrestlers of today, they're strong, they're buff too in their own way, but it's a different kind of buff. Like I feel like they're a little more like maybe chiseled or something, more lean buff, or I'm not exactly sure what it is. Back in the day, though, it was like wrestler buff. It's like if you look at like Ultimate Warrior's thigh, you're like, dude, that thing is huge, like the size of a Volvo.
Volvos are pretty big.
They are pretty big.
And they're safe.
What are you getting at, Steve? You want to be in between Ultimate Warrior's thighs?
Well, let's just say when I'm watching Man of Steel with Henry Cavill, I feel safe. Like I'm a Volvo.
I'm so confused right now.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so after we watched that, I was just looking through, I think it was HBO Max or something. I don't even know. And they now have Dunkirk available.
Another good Christopher Nolan film.
I said, hey, before we go to bed, I have to watch the dogfight scene. Gotta watch it.
So you didn't finish it?
Oh, we finished it, Russ.
Oh, you did. Did you fast forward through any of it, or did you watch it from start to finish?
Well, we watched the dogfight scene, and I was sitting there like an excited 5-year-old boy, and she got me on tape. Like, well,
kinky. Kinky.
Digital tape, i.e. cell phone. And she decided, hey, let's just watch the whole thing. Let's just watch the whole thing. So we started it over, all the way to the beginning. Watch it all the way to the end.
I'm proud of you, Steve.
It's a good night.
Yeah, any night where you got Christopher Nolan entertaining you, it's
Yeah.
dare I say, great night.
Right.
Indeed. Anything else, Steve? Did you play anything?
No, Russ. Did not play anything except for twitching with your booty. Mm-hmm. That was about it. Oh, my wife did beat the Crash Bandicoot Nitro Racing, though.
Nice.
Yeah. Actually,
nice.
I was talking to you on the phone, and she was being respectful, but she was jumping up and down, being like, "Hey, I beat it, I beat it." And I was like, yeah, Russ, go, babe, yeah. Oh, yeah, that sounds interesting, cool. Yeah, you're awesome. Oh, high five.
Well, I approve. That is fantastic.
Freaking hot in here. Man, it's hot in here. I'm used to like 20 degrees outside. I come in here, it's 4 times the degree.
What you don't realize is that's my master plan, Steve, to have you dressed down to the point where we get to see your banana hammock.
I was about to see it in a second.
I know you're wearing the pink one tonight, aren't you?
Polka dots.
I happen to have fond memories of the polka dots.
Have you been playing anything?
A little bit. You know, it's been difficult because this week was what it was, which was chaos. But I did manage to play a little bit more Cyberpunk 2077.
You don't say.
Xbox
Cyberpunk?
Series X.
I wouldn't even guess, Russ.
Yes. I made my way into the Arasaka estate, which you probably have not been to yet because you probably have not been playing it since you had a pretty bad experience.
Isn't that the place where you steal something like in the beginning of the game, Russ?
No.
Oh,
that would be the hotel,
negative.
Steve.
Was it a hotel?
It was the part you're talking about, yes. There is a affluent part of Night City where the richest of the rich live. And it's there you're going to find mansions without the burps. But anyway,
There you'll find mansions.
it was a lot of fun, though, to be able to go through yet another area that I had not explored or checked out yet. And so that was a lot of fun. Watched Coco, which that is our topic of the day for this particular episode. Coco. We were streaming Overwatch on Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time, which is what we always do together. Although it was a bit of a bummer because your microphone was kaput.
Well, my Xbox read my microphone was working. Like, it came up on a little bit left. Yeah, Steve's talking. Now he's not. Now Steve's talking. I'm like, yeah, Russ. And I had texted you before you started streaming, like, hey, get in the party chat with me before you start streaming. You're like, okay, Steve's been invited to stream. Your audio's not included. I'm like, accept.
Well, did you try unplugging and plugging back in like a
Multiple times, Russ.
Yeah, it's because your controller's jacked up. Your wife broke your controller, Steve. That's the problem.
But the thing is, why would my Xbox read that my mic is working if my mic wasn't working?
It's called malfunction, Steve. It's where your local system thinks everything is honky-dory because something's plugged into it, but then across the interwebs it's going, Mayday! Ain't nothing happening over here. But anyway, hopefully at some point in the near future, Steve will be the proud owner of a brand new Xbox controller. We can only hope. However, playing through Overwatch, one of the things that we were very excited about is the fact that it looks as though Capture the Flag has become much more of a permanent or permanency, dare I say, of the kind of the Overwatch lineup. Because up until this point, we were always hoping that Capture the Flag was going to be there, but they kept taking it down and replacing it with something else. And then,
well, what happens is they're watching game activity on their end. They're like, every time on a Wednesday night, there's an uptick in Capture the Flag.
There's an uptick by 2.
On Wednesday only.
Johnson,
night.
I want you to do something about that because we have an uptick of 2 on Wednesday night.
My eye gum.
Make it snappy. But anyway, they not only it looks as though it's becoming more of a permanent feature within Overwatch that you play on a daily basis. Now they have like 3 sections that have different versions of Capture the Flag. So I was pretty stoked. Were you happy about that?
I was very happy about that, Russ. Man, it's just blazing hot in here. Gosh.
You having trouble thinking?
30 degrees.
Yeah.
Here, 82 right now.
We got to play catch up because it was so cold earlier in the week.
Air. Give me air.
It's okay. When we come back, Steve will, in fact, probably be out of his clothes and showing off that polka dotted underoos, as it were. Our topic of the day is the Coco movie review. So when it comes to everything that has happened and transpired with this film, this is one of those situations where the film got away from me. And I apologize. It has taken us this long to actually review it. And I know you had seen it earlier, but I had not. And it's bizarre because normally I watch every single kind of Pixar movie that comes out. Yeah. This one, however, got away from me. But I'm so happy and excited that we have the opportunity to review it now, especially considering the fact that the theaters are they're not really showing anything. So this provides a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to talk about Coco. Steve, could you please provide us with your high-level spoiler-free thoughts on what you thought of Coco?
Well, the story's rich, Russ. It's a great story. There's a lot to like about dear old Coco. And the music is absolutely fantastic. It's like Pixar can take a story pretty much about anything and make it pretty darn good, right? But, it's not like your kind of, I guess, normal Pixar movie. It is like thematically, but not like, Toy Story or Bug's Life or, something like that. You're not having like animals that talk and stuff. Finding Nemo kind of deal. Toys, animals, whatever. These are actual like people, kind of like in Soul. Maybe that's the Disney influence. I don't know. But anyway, so Coco is not like you're gonna be hilarious throughout the whole movie like your other Pixar movies. It's more Disney influence, but the story is very good. I enjoyed the movie. It's been about a year since I've seen it, and I enjoyed The second time through, pretty much just as much as the first time. I was looking for stuff that I had missed the first go round. I'm like, yeah, I know what happens. Oh, it didn't happen. What in the world? I know what happens here. Oh, that didn't happen either. Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. I'll wait and with bated breath and see what happens. So no, it was enjoyable. It's an emotional movie, but it's more like story, emotional driven than like humor. So it's not going to be your funny movie, but I mean it's a good Pixar Disney family movie. Not something you're used to,
Indeed.
Not the kind of story. Very cultural. What did you think?
Well, there were a lot of points that you made that I definitely think about and agree on. First of all, I think that this particular story is an endearing one. And it's to be expected because it's Pixar, right? I mean, like if you think about every film that they make, all their films have so much heart. And I think that when it comes to a film like this, it has its own unique slice of how they communicate and convey the heart through the storytelling when it comes to this. I think that the film itself is a great example of cultural exploration. And I think that we're living in a very exciting time as it applies to CG movies. Because like to your point earlier that you made, you had Coco that came out, and then we have Soul that has come out as well. And I think we have another one that's coming out from Disney that is supposed to be coming out this year. I think it's, what's it called? Something like Raya and the Dragon or something like that. Zaya. Anyway, I believe it's coming out next month. Oh. And that's yet another culture that's somewhere in the Asian territories. And so I think it's really fun for a number of reasons. One of which is I get to learn about another culture. And I think when it comes to the execution of a film like this, it's I think that it's not as easy as it looks because you don't want to overwhelm people who are not familiar with the culture, but you want to inspire them to want to know more. You want to like forge this curiosity and ultimately this fascination and respect for the culture. And I think that they did a fantastic job in that regard with this particular film. The soundtrack is terrific. I mean, and again, it's Pixar. Pixar is renowned for their fantastic soundtracks. Doesn't matter which movie it is. You got a friend in me. I do think that there is a fun plot twist, which I'll expand upon later on, just because I don't want to spoil anything at this point in time. I think what's also interesting is how the whole holiday of Day of the Dead, it acts as a vehicle for relatives. And I'll get into that later on too, but I do like how they were able to bring something that is actually pretty well known with Central American culture, and weave it in such a way that I think is really original. And finally, I can't believe it took me this long to see it because it really is like a great film. I mean, I can say right up front, if you haven't seen the movie or if you've seen it a while ago and you haven't seen it in a bit, I would certainly say, I think that we should in fact recommend that you do in fact go check it out, Steve. I'm trying to think.
Think about what, Russ?
Well, I'm trying to think about whether or not I have the elevator. Oh, yes, I do.
This should be mariachi music.
I thought about that actually. It's quite all right though, Steve. It's quite all right.
Thumb in my guitar, feeling the music.
Pixar would not win any Oscars for best soundtrack if you were in charge.
Family doesn't like music, but I like music.
When is this elevator gonna stop?
Ziggler in the back. Hey, how you doing?
Be here all week.
We have reached the spoiler floor. So if you haven't seen the film and you don't want to hear about spoilers, then we suggest that you pause us and watch it and then return and listen. Or if you just don't care, then, let's carry on then, shall we? So, Steve, could you please provide us with a general summary of the plot?
Okay, so you got this little boy, adorable little boy.
Miguel,
about 12 years old, right? And just like pretty much any other Pixar films, he's different. He doesn't want to follow the social norms and the family norms and be like one of the bots and the lemmings. And he wants to be different. He wants to break away, do something else. And so he likes the music. La musica. And his family says, well, based on our history, music is a curse. So anything like you strumming your fingers or humming a tune or blowing air into a bottle, you're out. No music, no nothing. A little hard to, kind of, no, I mean, really nothing, but not even a little bit, not even a whistle. No music whatsoever. His idol, though, is this famous musician who's known throughout his village and probably the entire country. And he ends up wanting to compete in this Day of the Dead competition, music competition.
Ernesto de la Cruz.
And he ends up trying to steal Ernesto's guitar from his memorial grave, which ends up kind of magically making him semi-dead, or at least be able to see the dead. And he has to get a blessing from his relatives to come back to the land of the living to fulfill the blessing and whatever that blessing may be, to be with his family, to play music, to just be a great person, whatever that might be. And throughout this journey, he's meeting all these different relatives, finding out family secrets, learning about them. They are learning about him. And we kind of fall in love with everyone along the way.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
So one of the things that stood out to me in this movie, and honestly, it resonates with me quite a bit, is how well they spun significance into the film. And significance, when it applied to any film, really, there are just about, every film has a certain amount of significance to it. Nothing ideally is left to chance or just put in there randomly, right? Like it's all a part of good storytelling. But when it came to Coco, there was a very sweet approach to the significance that I wanted to talk to you about, Steve.
Okay.
And the main theme, the reoccurring theme is Remember Me. Like if you think of the main song that gets sang quite a few times in the film, the title of the song is Remember Me. But it's interesting how it's weaved into all this stuff. So for instance, the Day of the Dead is actually like a happy festivity. It's a celebration
festival
of loved ones and being able to spend a day thinking about your family tree, thinking about your ancestors, thinking about the loved ones that you lost and stuff. But it's not in a mourning sense, which is interesting because in our culture, in our society, we tend to associate skeletons with death, and there's a very kind of somber or negative connotation associated with that. But in the Central American culture, when it comes to the Day of the Dead, it's a very joyful thing. And I think what was interesting about it is that the purpose behind it is that it acts as a proactive vehicle to get everyone involved, to make time to think about those who came before you. And using that as a catalyst for the movie, it was interesting because then they started to explore these different things. Like, for instance, you had this mysterious great-great-grandfather whose his face had been ripped out from the photo that they have on this table of all their ancestors and stuff. So you don't know who that is. and to see how they begin to explore the idea of what if you could, as someone who's a part of the land of the living, visit the land of the dead and see like what's going on. Like, how does this work? How does this interaction work? And so,
Well, you talk to each other, Russ.
we talk to each other, of course. But what's interesting is that so as the custom goes, it's like, you know, it's important to remember your ancestors, remember your family. And when it came to the film, like if you have your current family members who were alive when you were around, because that was kind of like one of the caveats, right? If they no longer think about you or honor you during this festivity, then you kind of have what they called in the movie a second death, which is
the final death,
or the final death where you kind of disappear into nothing.
You're gone.
And there was a scene in there in particular where Hector, we discover for the first time, he actually has musical talent. He pulls up the guitar, he plays his buddy one last song because he knows that he's about to have his second death or final death, whatever it is. And that's kind of like where we get the first taste of that kind of, it's this fusion of sadness and just a sweetness, like a really sweet, tragedy almost in a way, where like, you know, you see this character barely on screen for like 2 minutes and you really feel sympathy and loss when he disappears. You're like, my goodness, how sad. But he was such a loving, like, I mean, not loving, but just a memorable character, right? Like the audience instantly got behind him and liked him. So when it comes, you know, going back to what I was talking about in terms of the significance, it was interesting too how they twisted it in such a way where, like, you know, you had De La Cruz, who he really didn't have any kind of family. Like when I watched him, my understanding was he really didn't have a wife or family or anything like that, and he was kind of more of like this playboy of sorts who was narcissistic. He was after like fame and fortune. That was his passion in life, as opposed to having and raising a family. And it was interesting how he wanted to be remembered, but his version of it was even in death, it was these huge monuments to his success and his celebrityism and everything else, and how all of that was based around this persona that he had created, that even the folks who knew of him when they were alive, even in death, they still treated him like a celebrity. They still remembered who he was, and he was able to retain his status and power as a result of it. Very different in terms of Remember Me from the La Familia perspective of things.
Well, also, too, he wasn't able to come back over to see any relatives. He just stayed in that purgatory of sorts, I guess. And everyone, and the reason he could stay there was everybody remembered him. I mean, that whole plaza where the mariachi were and they were going to have that competition was named after him.
Right.
So tons of people remembered him, but no one put up pictures of him because he wasn't anybody's ancestor at that point. And so he couldn't cross. He didn't even try and cross over, but he couldn't if he wanted to.
Right, exactly. And you allude to another aspect to the more like twisted and poisoning perspective of Remember Me, and the significance of it is not only was it in the land of the dead, but it was also in the land of the living, because it was based and predicated all on this lie that he had fabricated. And it was really dark if you stop to think about it, because he murdered his buddy. The person
who was writing all of his songs.
Yeah, it was like, well, I mean, they were travel buddies. They were making their careers together as entertainers and musicians. And when his friend wanted to stop and quit and go back because he was missing his family, he took him out and stole his music book because he was responsible for all the writings and stuff. And so, you know, having that type of situation in the land of the living, that is also, like I said, like another part of like this really twisted thing where like everybody remembered De La Cruz, but no one remembered Hector.
Right.
And so, you know, so there's kind of two parts to that, which is, I mean, again, it's just great storytelling. Going back to the family side of things, what's really fascinating is that the last relative who knew Hector was his daughter, Coco. And how that was such a sweet thing too, because he was constantly trying to go back and visit with her any way he could. And due to some sort of miscommunication or misunderstanding as to what went down, his whole family really impeded him from doing so. And, otherwise, if they had known the truth, he would have had a completely different outcome in terms of like, even though he was murdered by his colleague and everything, and he stole all of his natural talent and skill and stuff and pretend like he's the one who came up with it. Still, like, he was unable to go visit his daughter. If you recall, his daughter Coco was like barely out of being a toddler. I mean, she looked like she was like 3 or 4 years old. And here she is, Mama Coco, where she's a great grandmother. I mean, she's really old. She's reaching the end of her days, and he's never had a chance to visit her. And she's the last link that he has before he's going to have his final death. And so
he's forgotten. Yeah.
So again, there are all these multiple layers of this theme of Remember Me, that again, really neat to reflect on and think about, because there's a lot. You can tell that they wanted to explore every facet they could. And it's a kids movie. Like, that's the crazy thing too, is like, I mean, it's pretty deep considering it's a family film. And the other thing is that kids understand it. Like, my 6-year-old was watching it. She really got a lot of those things that I figured I would have to explain to her.
Well, in Pixar magic, they make a movie that's entertaining both little kids and adults. Russ.
Indeed, Steve. Indeed. One of the other things that I think is very fascinating about the significance of the theme, Remember Me, is when I think of Mama Coco, she is one of the characters in the movie. First of all, you don't know who Coco is. Like, you see the title of the movie, it's like Coco, and you're like, oh, okay. But it's really not until about 3/4 of the way through that, like, you really start to understand the significance of why they named it Coco and the gravity of the situation. And I felt guilty because, and this is something that, like, I think that people on average, they do this unintentionally, right? Like, you have your daily hubbub of life. You have your daily responsibilities. You have your job. You have to upkeep your house. You have to take care of your family, all this different stuff. When it comes to senior citizens, they're often forgotten about, even if it's on a temporary basis. Or maybe, like, another way that's more accurate would be like they're just placed on a lower priority, not because people want to be mean, but because there's all this other stuff that goes on that honestly distracts us. And so it's crazy when I watched this particular film, because when we were first introduced to Mama Coco, I just figured, okay, she's just one of those, like, characters they throw in just to, like, kind of round out the family, let's get on with the story, whatever. I had that kind of reaction where, I thought, oh, nice, sweet little old lady. Okay, next, that sort of thing. And for her to be, like, the most important person at the end of the film, that is like so much is hedging on trying to, like, jog her memory and cause her to remember her father. It was huge. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat at that point. And again, very poignant moment where, and I realize I'm jumping all over the place here, so I apologize for that. But I really do think that like they did such an outstanding job with this. Miguel is absolutely obsessed over trying to get back in time, because he realizes that Hector is his great-great-grandfather, and that Hector has been wronged in so many ways, not only by his colleague and taking all the credit for his work, but also his family falsely accusing him and, like, not cutting him a break and everything. I mean, all this stuff is terrible. And so you see him desperately trying to get Coco to remember, and the way that he ends up succeeding is by replaying the song that Hector wrote for Coco when she was a little girl called Remember Me. And the journey of that song, Remember Me, throughout the whole movie, it was so neat to see how it got started and how it moved into like how the De La Cruz used it for his own personal gain. And then how like there was like this moment of realization as to like how they were connected together as family and then using it to ultimately save Miguel. Phenomenal.
And cross planes between the dead versus the living.
Yeah, I mean, I was really excited to talk about that, and I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to like remember all my talking points, so I just had to have diarrhea of the mouth at that point, just like and get that out there.
Well, I mean, Remember Me is kind of like out of it. It can be out of sight, out of mind, out of existence in a way, and not out of existence as in like poof, you're gone, in a magic cloud of pixie dust. But like, for example, consider maybe some friends that you grew up with in high school that you don't talk to anymore because they've moved to a different spot. You've moved to a different spot. Their life got busy with work and marriage and kids, and your life got busy with work and marriage and kids. And so you guys don't communicate. And then you don't remember them. I mean, you do, but I mean, you don't because your day is so full with other stuff that's preoccupying your thoughts and your time. And so that person could get in a car accident, could, be paralyzed. They could win $1 million. They could, and then at some point, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, you might find out that, that person passed like 15 years ago, but you wouldn't even known. You could have lived the rest of your life and not even like realized, right? So I think Remember Me also is not just with, remember me after I die, but remember me and what was special and what was bonding us together, like remember me for the rest of your life of what we shared.
Right. Absolutely. Moving on from that, I want to talk about the graphics because the visuals in this movie are, again, I mean, it's Pixar, right? Like Disney and Pixar have really mastered this certain branded look that is breathtaking in all their films. And it's no slouch at all in this particular film, where like you have various colors that leap off the screen at you. You have wonderful cinematography in terms of the framing of the different shots, all kinds of texture work. One of the things I loved, one of the scenes was actually toward the opening, and that is with, I can't remember what they're called, but like they're basically like these tissue paper or paper cutouts that hang on like clothing line. Excuse me.
Closing lines.
There
are lines you hang up when you want to close a shop.
But anyway, it is tradition and fun for the culture to be able to make these, and then you hang them right next to each other, and it's wonderful. It's like this kaleidoscope of color that's hanging in the air. And I love how they decided to make these little mini animations within each one that tell a story as the VO is going on. It reminded me a bit of Moana, because Moana has the tattoos, right? Like the I can't remember what the little tattoo guy's name was, but basically like there was like this tattoo that lived on the pec, and it was like this total 2D animation, but it was awesome because it was like, yeah, like tattoos tell a story, and it's great to have it come to life. I love how they were able to apply it in this regard.
Talking about Maui.
Yes. Yeah,
you're welcome.
But who's wasn't there a name for the tattoo, the character?
I don't recall that much detail about that movie, Russ.
But yeah, you're right. It was Maui. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just like he says in the song.
Speaking of songs, one of the other things I really loved about the movie was how the beginning, when you see the Disney logo, like the Disney castle, how they had a Spanish influenced sound to all the instruments and stuff that played the Disney logo song, the theme song, fanfare. Very nice.
Kind of makes you think of Soul and how they did it with the high school band.
I love it. Though it's the little touches like that give it so much character, and it only lasts like 10, 15 seconds. But like it seriously sets the tone, and it's so cool. I don't know. I love it when creative expression gets the green light in that regard, because the bean counters, man, they could easily shut that down.
One of the themes, I guess, that I saw in the movie. I don't know if anybody else would see it, but I would say communication is one of the themes, because you have Miguel, who has this passion for music, and he is a totally different individual than De La Cruz. So, and a different person than his great-great-grandfather. And so he wants to express his talent and his passion to his family, and his family wants nothing to do with it. Like just shutting him off altogether. And then you have the afterlife with all the ancestors who ban Hector altogether and don't even want to listen to what he says. And then generations and years, decades go by, and they don't even want to listen to him. They don't want to talk to him. If they just had like a simple conversation, both in like regular life and then also in the afterlife, all this stuff would have like been not a big deal. This whole thing, I mean, we're glad it all happened because we got a great movie out of it. But it was almost like this story had to be forced because the conversation wasn't forced nor listened to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and another part of it too, because you're right, there was a lot of sadness and tragedy in the film, but it was counterbalanced with like what I was saying earlier, that there's a very like sweet quality about it as well. And I loved how everything got tidied up in the end. It wasn't out of convenience. It was like you were really rooting for Hector, because you realize like, man, this guy's been dealt a really lousy hand in life and death. Like, this is awful. And for him to realize and discover that he is in fact a great-great-grandfather, that he was able to be reunited and visit Coco, and that he didn't have to have the final death, and that Coco herself was able to remember her father. And I don't know, there's so much there that, again, it's not an easy task. It's not something that's easy to do in storytelling, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in one or the other. And all of a sudden, like, there becomes kind of like this spiral of something that doesn't quite work out the way that this did.
One of the neat little features that I enjoyed was when Miguel, when he first enters or notices that he's in the afterlife, and all the skeletons are looking at him like, "You're not supposed to be here. You're a living person. You're and we're all dead." His ancestors recognized him. Yeah. From like maybe like crossing over and seeing the family.
They see him, yeah.
Even though they couldn't, the skeletons could see the real people, but the real people couldn't see the skeletons. And so, but they all knew him and knew his name. Like they had been watching over, kind of like a guardian angel of sorts in a way.
And but it wasn't formal. It was like, really like, "Oh, hey, Miguel."
Exactly. Like, yeah, we've been watching you your entire life, and now it's cool you actually see us. And I thought that was really neat, because I mean, we all have ancestors. We've all come from this line of people from who knows where on the planet, right? And you've conquered difficulties and had successes and losses and their own stories to tell. And how neat will it be, and would it be, to actually see your relatives, have a conversation, be like, "Wow," and they go, "Yeah, Russ, I've been watching you, I'm your great from all the way, you're like, wow, that's amazing. You know my name, and you know who I am, and you know my story. Like, tell me all about yourself. I've heard it, I've heard, certain stories passed down from other family members, but tell me more about it." I just thought that was just, really, really neat. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'm a stranger in a strange land. I'm a stranger, but I have my family here." Mm-hmm. Even though I didn't know they, were watching over me. I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, no, it is really neat. And it goes back to what I mentioned earlier in the show, which is that's one of the really endearing things about that particular holiday in Central America is it's, again, like in our culture, like it's very passive. It's very passive in nature, because if I'm like, say for instance, I'm a kid or I'm a teenager or even today or whatever, if I were to ask, say for instance, our parents about who our ancestors were, then we would have a conversation about it, and maybe there would be like a photo album that comes out and you see like 1 or 2 pictures or whatever. And that would be about the extent of it. And if you have residual curiosity, it's kind of on you to find out more about your ancestry, right? This is different in the sense where, because it's so ingrained in the culture, it's like family is very important to people in Central America. And I would even argue even South America. I would say like what's really neat about this though is that it causes it to be a very like proactive dialogue that you have at least once a year, because you're pulling out the pictures. They're all framed. They're on the table. They're on display, and it's done so to honor the people who have passed on and that sort of thing. And so as a result, you're going to have conversations about who so-and-so is and who so-and-so is and that sort of thing. And it's I think that's where kind of the sweet quality comes into it, is that it's like they never really fully leave. And I think there's something really special about that, because their memory doesn't fade. Their memory stays fresh. And the movie capitalizes on that. You know, the film really talks about that a lot. But I think even in the real world, I think it's a really neat byproduct of why that exists, because you want to honor the people that came before you, but you also want to know, like, everyone has a curiosity as to where they came from. I mean, that's why you have like ancestry.com, and you have other ones that are like that too. You can find out like where your bloodline originated from or whatever. And it's just because it is neat to be able to find out where you're from, and we have the technology to be able to do it. And I just think it's really cool. It's such a simple thing, but if you imagine growing up in that environment, you would have all kinds of knowledge of a significant number of people within your family tree, as opposed to us, which, you know, it's like, well, I kind of knew my granddad.
Yeah. Beyond that, I don't even know. Who knows? I think I knew his name. Great-great-grandfather. Moving on. Video games.
There was another item that I put in my notes that has to do with significance as well.
Hey, what's up, Russ?
So if you notice, okay, so Miguel's family owned a shoe business, right?
Yeah.
They made shoes.
Zapatos.
What's interesting though is it's like I was thinking about it, I'm like, okay, there's got to be something to this. Like, why did they choose shoes of all the different professions? Why did they choose to do that? And what's interesting is that when you see Hector's barefoot.
Yes, he is.
The entire film, he's barefoot, despite the fact that that is his family. And all the people who are dead also, I mean, and there are plenty of close-ups of his dead relatives' like feet and shoes and stuff. Like when that one guy, the bean counter, goes down to grab that little leaf off the woman's dress, and you see her shoes. I mean, like they're reinforcing in a very subtle way this visual. And what's interesting is that later on in the film, you can see Hector wearing shoes to cross the bridge with the other relatives. So
things you might have missed in Coco.
Well, and I think it speaks to, well, it's a visual metaphor for how he was cast out of the family.
Right.
You know, I think that it was again, I had to watch it a second time. And even then I was like, wait a minute. And looking at that, I'm so glad I remembered to say that, because I was like, man, that is so cool, because it's things like that I geek out over.
Well, the whole family actually looked really nice. Like, everybody was dressed up really nice. It was almost like even though Hector died, by poison, in very, very nice, on stage clothes.
That's what we call murdered.
Anyhow, he was dressed for the slums. Rather, and all the other relatives were in gowns and hats and really
that one woman who's like the matriarch of the family. She had that awesome like cat soul dragon thing.
Yeah, what was it? Your spirit animal?
Yeah.
A cat with wings. No mouse is safe. A cat with wings with eyes of a hawk.
I wonder what your spirit animal would be, Steve.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a porcupine.
A porcupine.
Platypus or something.
I have no idea what mine would be.
Yours would be a probably chipmunk.
You're probably right. So, Steve, in conclusion, what did you think of the film, and what star rating would you give it?
Well, I really enjoy this movie. I bought it, but in 4K, so I had to go back to Disney Plus to watch this one. So, but I bought it in 4K because of all the colors and all the details like it shows with the afterlife town and whatnot. And man, the music is absolutely fantastic. And I think with the Disney Pixar films that have come out since the two companies have merged and kind of, more Disney influence, this has been one of the better films since that happened. Like better than Toy Story 4, I think, better than Soul, better than a lot of the last movies that we've had from Disney Pixar. So this is actually one of the better ones, I would say. And easy movie to watch with the kids, easy movie to watch with yourself. I don't know if I'd go out and get the soundtrack. Russ, let me ask you something.
I got the soundtrack.
That's not what I was going to ask you.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Did you cry at the end, Russ?
No, I didn't. But what I did do...
Oh, you did too. I don't even want to hear it.
It's so funny because, okay, so I have to give a shout out to some of my older colleagues.
Changing the topic.
Yes. So I worked at, I don't know, this other job I worked at a little while back. I had a lot of colleagues who were friends who are from Central America and from South America. They were raving about Coco. I believe the film came out when we were working together, and they knew how much of a Pixar nut I was. And they were like, Russ, you've got to see this. This is amazing, everything. And they were all saying how sad it was and how they were crying and just all this stuff that was going on. Like, man, there was a lot of emotionality that was a part of their description of the film. And I mean, to the point where it was quite palpable. I was like, man, okay. And again, I'm totally guilty of just like letting it go by the wayside until now. But I hope that folks like Monica and Simone and Nando and Gustavo,
I met them.
A few others, I hope you're listening, because I've now seen the film and I cannot believe it has been this long. I can completely understand why it won Best Animated Film of whatever year. What year did it come out?
Was it 2017?
2018?
Great.
I have failed yet again.
You failed me for the last time.
But what was interesting is I feel as though because so many people told me it's sad. There's all different stuff. Like I was like gearing myself up, like, okay. I'm ready. What's happening? But what ended up happening was, okay, first of all, that last scene was spectacular. And I had this smile come across my face it was like, again, I was witnessing something that normally is exclusive to the family household. Like
2017, by the way.
2017, thank you. There was, you have these moments that you treasure forever. And this was an animated film. This was not even like real people acting. But at the same time, it doesn't matter because they were successful in capturing those very special moments that families have together. And to see Mama Coco all of a sudden remember her dad and seeing that and everything else, like, I mean, the timing of it, the expressions that the animators were able to convey on her, as well as Miguel, just like, man, so heartfelt. It was, man, really well done. So no, I did not cry, but I was in the moment.
Yeah, no, I cried both times, but it wasn't because of sadness, Russ. It was not because of sadness.
Happy tears, Steve?
No, not necessarily happy tears. I wasn't, and okay, we're in spoiler section. So when Mama Coco dies, I wasn't necessarily sad that Mama Coco died. Where it was pulling on my heartstrings was thinking of the many nice experiences I have had with our grandparents and how they are gone. I miss them, but I'm not like depressed, sad, crying. Also, this is my own personal experience. Before I had married my wife and I had flown back to the old country, when I was about to get on the plane to fly home 16 hours, my wife said to me, and this was back in 2011, remember me.
Oh.
So it brings me back to that exact moment.
You
and
had your
I'm
own personal significance, Steve.
That's right. So even though we're married now and it's absolutely wonderful, I remember exactly what I was thinking, and it brings me right back.
Hits home, doesn't it?
Home run.
Well, that's great, Steve.
Yeah.
Concluding thoughts and rating, please.
Well, Russ, probably one of the most emotionally packed and expressive animated movies, if not movie altogether, that I have ever seen. And I would rate it a 4.5.
4.5, he says. This film has been a long time coming in terms of me watching it, and I'm so glad I did. I think it is another gem upon the Pixar crown. And I think there is so much to love about this. I think that being able to explore a culture such as this in a Pixar film is wonderful. I'm like I said earlier, I'm really, really happy that they have done films like Coco and like Soul. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else that they do in the future when it comes to this. The storytelling, again, if you think about the setting,
I'm thinking about it, yeah.
It's a pretty simple setting. It's like they're in like their little village in the land of the living, or they're in the land of the dead. And they kind of run around back and forth in these places. But if you were to compare this film to like Toy Story or Toy Story 2 or something, like, they're going all over the place. I mean, they go to their neighbor's house. They're going to Pizza Planet. There's a lot of traveling involved with something like that. Or like Finding Nemo. I mean, Finding Nemo, he's going across half the ocean looking for his son. I mean, there is a lot of vistas and locales that you tend to see in quite a few of the Pixar films. So this was very different in that it was not that case.
Did you see the Pizza Planet? Was it the Pizza Planet truck that drove by in the beginning?
Of Coco?
Drove by the house.
I don't know.
I think it was the Pizza Planet truck.
It gives me reason to watch it a third time.
Yes.
So I think that in a way, and again, this is another quality that the film has. This film could so easily become a Broadway musical. Like if you think of like the music that gets played and sung in this film, as well as the premise and the locales and stuff, this could easily be on Broadway. And I think that that's awesome. That's a wonderful testament to the skills of the folks who compose the music and the lyrics, as well as even the set dressers and everything else. I mean, really, really well done. I have to say, Steve.
Rating Russ, yeah.
I'm getting to it, Steve. I'm getting to it. When I think of the characters.
Oh, there's more.
There are characters in this that, man, they are so authentic. And I think it kind of connects with what I was talking about with regards to the culture. But like, I think it's so at times difficult to be able to understand and be able to celebrate different cultures around the world. And part of culture has to do with the personalities that you come across, the people, right? And I feel as though like these are people who like I could run into and instantly be friends with, and or maybe just have an appreciation for how they live their lives, what their lifestyle is. And I think it's really neat to be able to see characters like Hector or Miguel, or even the various family members, and it's so funny because no matter which family you're in, you always have like these different quirky personality types and different body shapes and sizes and ages and everything else. I mean, that's what all makes up being a family. So I think that is absolutely great. And I would say I'm going to be with you, Steve. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute, but I too will get 4.5 stars.
Yeah. Good. Glad you agree with me.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Make sure you tune in next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to go to patreon.com/Joygasm, which is spelled JOYGASM, and consider becoming a monthly contributor.
And if you're already on Patreon, you're watching this right now.
You are. In fact, this particular episode is part of our video testing that is exclusive to the Patreon members. So if you want to see this sack of white goodness right here, you just go on to patreon.com/Joygasm, because you'll get exclusive perks like one that we just described and early access to every single episode. Not to mention it helps us continue building up and doing everything that we do here, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Last but not least, you can follow us on social media. Just do a search for YouTube, and be sure to be able to do a search for Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time.
Don't forget to check out Russ's banner on Facebook.
Oh,
he made it, huh?
Production values. We'll see you next week.